Welcome to the Jericho Force podcast, where we learn how to integrate faith into the work that we do. Don't conform to the world's way of doing business. Transform by doing business God's way. Here's our host, my husband, author, speaker, teacher, encourager, and stewardship coach, Jason Davis.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Jericho Force podcast. My name is Jason Davis, and I am so excited to be with you all. This is the start of something great. I believe God is going to move through how we integrate our faith into the work that we do and how we live out our faith in the marketplace. So stay tuned, folks, because as we go week to week, we're going to unpack powerful values and principles that you can apply directly in the workplace, because there is no compartmentalization. God moves in every area of your life, and the workplace is no different. To help us unpack this message of living out our faith in the workplace, we've got an exciting, dynamic guest today. And I'm going to introduce her here in a second. Her name is Chanel E. Martin, but let me tell you a little bit about her as we get ready to have her on. Chanel E. Martin is an award-winning technology entrepreneur, author, publisher, and digital marketer. Chanel teaches business owners how to fund, increase exposure, and build dynamic brands with specialized online training, books, and in-person events. Chanel is also the founder of media startup Beyond the Book Media, where she helps brands, small business owners, and consultants write manuscripts in 7 to 21 days, plus and publish niche books. Using her book writing formula, Chanel has taught thousands how to complete manuscripts in record time, you guys. Martin's strategies help small business owners authentically tell their unique brand story that resonates with their target audience, positions them as an expert, and increases their exposure on and offline. A master degreed chemical engineer by trade, Chanel has cracked the code on how to successfully brand, fund, and launch small businesses. Chanel and her companies have been featured in national publications and broadcasts, including The Real, BET, Black Enterprise, Essence, Ebony, Forbes, Yahoo, Business Insider, and more. As wife and mom of 3, Chanel lives by the mantra, walk in your purpose and let your light shine. You can learn more about Chanel by following her on all social media platforms at Chanel E. Martin, and by visiting her website, www.chanelmartin.com. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Chanel E. Martin to the Jericho Force podcast.
Hey, Jason. Thank you so much for that warm welcome and that warm introduction. I'm so honored to be here, especially with the launch of your podcast. And I'm really proud of the work that you're doing and just the commitment and the discipline that you're making to the body of Christ to really get your message out there. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely, Chanel. We've got a lot to get to, Chanel, because you have a lot going on. And trust me, people want to know and they want to hear. Now, folks, I have the pleasure of working with Chanel in multiple capacities. But Chanel, they don't really know what all those capacities are. So let's start at the top. There was a lot said in your bio, Chanel, but where did it all get started? People hear engineer, they hear business, they hear media. How did God start you out in business? Where did that even begin?
Oh, that's such a great question. So I always knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I actually got into chemical engineering because I wanted to create hair and beauty products for people of color. That was something that I was really passionate about. But before that, I went to school for performing arts from middle school to high school, and I had a very great Performing Arts Foundation in training. And so I studied how, acting and theater and speaking. And I did that first. So that was my very, very first love. I remember getting into applying to go into this performing arts school, and it's called Claflin School of Advanced Studies. And we had to audition because I was like, I'm going in for theater. And I was a fifth grader, and I did my own application. When I think about that, I'm like, gosh, I completed my own application, and I memorized a scene, a monologue from A Midsummer Night's Dream, and I was the character Helena. Now we're talking about a fifth grader to audition to come into the theater program in sixth grade. So it really starts there, okay, just with my passion for theater production in high school. And really in middle school, I would write plays, I would write productions. I enjoy producing the church plays, anytime that I can get an opportunity to be behind the scenes. And then I also participated in many beauty pageants, even winning Miss Black Oklahoma City when I was a senior. So that's where my media background comes. Now, let's talk about parents, right? Good parents, they want their children to be successful. And so my mother at the time, with the greatest intentions, was like, Chanel, are you sure you want to do something in film? I thought I want to do something in TV, film, acting, theater. I even had got some theater scholarships to go to Oklahoma State University and the University of Oklahoma. And I thought I was going to go and be a chemical engineer in a theater with a theater minor, because one of the people from Oklahoma State University came to our senior project, which we produced the play Fences. And so, but my mother saw that I was good in math and science, Jason, and she said, well, you have a surefire way to make it in the world as an engineer. You're really good. So in high school, she sent me to math and science camp. And I remember going to one, and the show, I saw a chemical engineer, and it really got my brain ticking. And so I created a love for it. And I associated with, I love all things makeup. I found that chemical engineers can work in plants and make makeup and beauty. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go to school to become a chemical engineer. And so that is actually what started. And so I said, I'm going to be a chemical engineer, and I'm going to get into the hair and beauty industry with my chemical engineering degree. Now, I know I sound like I'm all over the place, but I promise you, Jason, it all comes together. So here you have this highly talented, very gifted producer and actress, right? Then on the other hand, you have this very smart, sciencey person who, is growing a love for engineering. So I did a dual degree program with Clark Atlanta and Georgia Tech, and that is when I really started to learn engineering. And I ended up getting my master's degree at North Carolina A&T State University in chemical engineering as well. Mm-hmm. Now, I didn't go straight into the beauty industry, Jason. I went to the paper mill.
The paper mill. My goodness.
The paper mill. Right, the paper mill. And so I get to the paper mill, and I'm going to take a few steps back. When I was at Georgia Tech, I was named the social chair, and one of the things they asked me to do was to create a fashion show. Now, I know all of these things are just crazy, and I was like, well, I don't know anything about a fashion show, but I can produce something.
Right.
So I put together probably the best, I'm going to say the best fashion show that the African American Student Union, maybe even Georgia Tech, has ever seen. We had we sold out the first center, and it was immaculately produced, I'll say. And I raised the money for the fashion show because we didn't have any money. They gave me like a $800 budget, Jason. And I went and I was like, well, how do I get this money? I went and pitched this idea. You see how it's all coming together? I went and pitched this idea. I was like, we're going to do a fashion show. It's going to give you something to do. And I raised the money, and we sold out a fashion show. They told me I had to sell 60% of the seats, or I would have to pay a fee, and I wasn't paying nothing. Okay? So let me take a few steps back, Jason. So we have this theater person, this actress. Then we have this chemical engineer who, still kind of using. I got a chance to use my producing thing, and then I learned a new skill, which was fundraising. Or I became aware that I could go ask people for money and they would give it to me. So now let's fast forward just a little bit. So now I'm in the paper mill, and no, in my master's degree, before I got to the paper mill, I had a dream about a hair and beauty product, and I was so excited because I've been asking God, like, what am I going to do? I know I want to be an entrepreneur. It don't look like I'm about to go work at L'Oreal or Procter & Gamble. What am I going to do? Right? That's where all the the beauty brands were. You get a job at P&G or L'Oreal or Revlon or L'Oreal or I forgot the other one. And you can work on all these beauty products. And so the Lord gave me the dream for Myavana, which is one of the companies I co-founded. And so I asked God to show me who could be a good fit. And I remember Candace Mitchell, who was the president of the African American Student Union at the time. And she'd seen my work during the fashion show, and I'd seen her work as a president. And even though we didn't really have much of a relationship, I slid into her DMs way back then. And I'm a DM slider. I said, well, God showed me your face. This is what I'm doing. You want to get on the phone so I can see if you're interested? Right? I know. That's just what I do, right? And just kind of all of that brought forth my very first company, which is Myavana. So hopefully that story makes sense, Jason, but you can kind of see like how it all began. It's one big, beautiful creative mess, right?
Yes, a beautiful mosaic. That was the image that was coming to mind, Chanel. And so, Chanel, you said a few things that were powerful. And I don't know, I hope folks listening don't miss in Chanel's story. Don't miss, and trust me, it sounds like a little bit of a roller coaster. I've known Chanel for some time, so I love when she retells her life story and her professional story. But you said there were kind of two overarching themes, Chanel. There's the skill set part with all the different environments that you were in your childhood up through college and young adulthood. There are skill sets like sales. There was education, there was fundraising, there was networking, there was pitching. That's kind of the tangible skill sets. And then you talked about the role God played. You said you prayed and you asked for wisdom, you asked for help. So I saw two things, the tangible skill sets and then your personal relationship with God. In those two categories, what advice would you give to entrepreneurs or maybe those who work in corporate? They might be struggling, Chanel, with, well, I've got this background and this history, and I'm not really sure how it all comes together. And I feel like you're a great person to talk about, while you might work or have experience in different pockets, how are you able to kind of form this picture of, you know what, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, and this is how it comes together, and then bringing that before God and saying, Lord, what would you have me do with all of this? Can you talk to that and give some advice on that?
Yes, I can. So, okay, I'm going to try to unpack this as best I can. One of the things before, life starts hitting, and when I say life, I think I wasn't married yet, we didn't have kids. When you're like a young, fearless person, I'm very grateful that my mother, who raised me, never told me that I couldn't do something. Now that's powerful. So in my mind, whatever I wanted to do, I could do it. So I never counted myself out. And I had enough of a relationship with God to go back and just ask for help. And I feel like that just had to have been supernatural wisdom, Jason, because I was not taught that. That was not something that I was taught to really go to God and to expect an answer without a preacher or a pastor or someone telling it to you. Now things have changed now, Jason, right? We have access to way more information. I feel like I have a better understanding of the fivefold gifts and spiritual gifts, but at that time, they weren't really taught in the church construct that I grew up in. So that was supernatural that I had that relationship with God as someone who hears and sees very well. I'm grateful for my mother, who is also a seer and a dreamer, who, when I finally opened up to her in my freshman year in college, she explained that she too carried the gift, and it made me feel a little bit normal with all of my experience, just a tad bit. I didn't tell her everything. So I wanted to say that I never counted myself out. So I feel like sometimes, Jason, people will say, well, I'm in this industry, and they'll count themselves out of another industry. So I could have said, well, I'm just an engineer, and count myself out of going into now media, which, if you hear, you heard my story, was actually my first love. I love how God put things full circle. That's the first thing. The next thing is, I want you to understand that even if you don't have experience in something, God can use anything. God don't waste nothing. Every time I think about all of the crazy ups and downs and turns and twists of my life story, it is what has created this beautiful canvas that I call my experience in my life. I was able to pick up so much, Jason, right? Like, just having the ability to go to performing arts school and understand the foundation in producing. And I didn't share that I had a brief stint as I had my own radio show in Atlanta, on a station in Atlanta a while ago, that taught me everything that we're doing in Clubhouse and how to produce and run a show, right? I know, right? And so, you know what I feel like, and it's coming to me right now, I feel like God gives me on-the-job training because I'm willing to go.
Yes.
So, like, he'll say, okay, Chanel, I'll drop you here, and I'm going to allow you to be in the plant. I'm going to tell you what the plant taught me. Want to know what being a chemical engineer? Well, first of all, being a chemical engineer taught me process. So the way that I think about things, I think about it from a chemical engineer's mindset. Now, working in the plant in a manufacturing facility, it really taught me problem solving and how to work with people and how to reverse engineer things and how to look and diagnose issues. And so now I'm not intimidated by big problems because there was big machinery that I had to work on and I couldn't shrink back. I was a young Black woman as a manager in a plant full of older seasoned workers. So it taught me that. Now, I tell you about that fashion show because that was pivotal. That actually started my first company, which was Proximity Creative Agency, which I thought I was going to have a modeling agency and all that. That was not the real company, right? That was the starter company. But right. I learned how to recruit volunteers and organize teams. You see the trend? I knew that I had a goal and that I wanted to sell out this fashion show. So I immediately recruited people where the previous host had only got Georgia Tech people. I said, hey, there are people all over the Atlanta that might want to be in this show. So I recruited, I opened it up. I went on Craigslist, right? I went on all these different platforms. I said, who wants to be a part of the Georgia Tech Fashion Show? It's open for everyone. And then I put a mandate on them that they all sell at least 10 tickets. We had about 30 volunteers that we managed. And I put a mandate, like, y'all got to sell 10 tickets if you want to be a part of it. So that was already 300 tickets accounted for. Like, this type of wisdom, I feel like this is like that Solomon type of wisdom, right? I'm like, right. How did I know this? So then when I think about, my experience as in theater and how it helped me to produce things, the fashion show, how it helped me. I stepped into something I knew nothing about, but I figured it out. I was like, okay, well, God's going to be with me, because I literally closed my eyes and I asked God to tell me what to do, right? And I just wrote down what I saw and I just did it, right? Because I didn't have anything to lose at this point. So then we get to, I didn't tell you, after I left Plant Life and I came back to Atlanta because I lived in Charlotte, and I got a job at AT&T. Now this is really pivotal. I got a job at AT&T and I was a project manager. Now I went from being in a plant as a chemical engineer to a project manager at AT&T. I did that. That was my last corporate job, Jason. Okay. And I worked as a project manager at AT&T, and I learned how to manage projects. I learned how to how to I was one of the people in charge of making sure that the production of cell towers in certain cities, regions actually came to fruition. And so it was my responsibility to connect with all of these different business units and teams all over. I think the Southeast region is the region that I actually had. I had a few regions. So the way that they set up the dashboard and how they did check-in, you want to know where I used that in? Beyond the Book Media. That's how I set up Beyond the Book Media, because I remember that. I also worked as a marketing consultant right before I worked that, and then I went full-time with Beyond the Book Media. Now, they were a very small company, small team like Beyond the Book Media, and I saw how they ran their multi-million-dollar small corporation, and they built that, and they did everything in Slack. And so I took that information and I formed Beyond the Book Media's culture, very similar to their 100% virtual culture. So why am I telling you all of this? Because there's something that God has called each and every one of you to do. And it may not even have anything to do with your job, but I'm telling you, you can reach back and grab every single skill set. I want you to think about how you can apply what you learned into your business. One of the things, and I'm trying to be humble, but I got to be real because I know who I am in Christ.
Absolutely.
What makes me phenomenal, Jason, is that I am an intellectual creative.
Mm-hmm.
So my right brain and my left brain work in tandem, probably like many people have never seen. I am just as analytical as I am creative. And that part was developed. The analytical side was developed because I always knew I leaned on the creative side. But I just needed someone, my mother, develop and speak into the analytical side. She's the one that told me I could be an engineer. She's the one that told me I could make good grades in math. All I thought I was going to be was an actress somewhere, okay? She's the one that pushed me. So that other skill set never left, but I acquired a new skill set, which is allowing me to really do all the things that God has called me to do.
Right. So powerful, Chanel. As you were talking, I was thinking about, we started off just early on, different skill sets like pitching, the sales process, creativity, fundraising, and networking. But then as you were talking about being chemical engineer, being in the plant, being a project manager, starting a fashion show, I saw things like process, problem solving, managing projects, organization skills, goal setting, setting vision, and leadership, being able to influence and lead a group of people toward a common cause and common goal. I love that. And I hope people don't miss what Chanel is saying. She's dropping a lot of gems in her wide, vast array of experiences. We've named, Chanel, my goodness, at least 10 or 12 different things that get taught, whether it's in business school or some things aren't even taught if you get an MBA or went to business school, and you're giving us these gems. But I want to come back to two big skill sets, and this sets the table for when we get to Beyond the Book Media and then what God is doing through you on Clubhouse, Chanel. I have always seen from afar and know you're a storyteller and you are a lifelong learner. You have great storytelling, and those of you who have read Donald Miller's book, Story Brand, he kind of talks about that, the ability to tell a story and lead your customers into a journey and take them to a place where you can serve them and deliver value to your customer. That's what you learned along the way, Chanel. You learned to invite people into a story, and then you being a lifelong learner, you had the analytical brain and the creative brain working together. So folks, keep pushing, keep keeping on, because skill sets can be learned. And I loved what you said, Chanel, on the job learning. That's not just an industry term. God uses that. He does that. We're not going to have all the answers immediately up front. Some things happen by faith. And I want to set this up, Chanel, because I believe, just knowing you personally and just seeing you from afar operate over the years, that storytelling and that being a lifelong learner led you into Beyond the Book Media, where you empower so many people who have a message, a story to tell, and they're unsure of how to do that. Maybe they worked with a publisher and it didn't work out, or maybe they started a book, but because of fear or procrastination or whatever, they didn't have a system to develop. So tell us about how God uses you through Beyond the Book Media for aspiring authors out there. And before you begin, Chanel, I got to give a shout out. You need to know, Chanel is my publisher for the book that I published earlier this year in March, 4 to 5 Being Rooted in God's Plan for Work and Business. So I'm biased in terms of Chanel and Beyond the Book being the best. But Chanel, tell us how God uses Beyond the Book Media.
Oh my goodness. So I'm going to take you back a few points, and then we're going to come back up to date, because I don't even know if you've even heard this version of the story, Jason. So I realized I was a storyteller when I started writing for Black Enterprise. I used to be, I know you're like, okay, what hasn't she done? So I wrote for Black Enterprise, and I used to tell other people's stories in Black Enterprise. And all of my articles would land on the first page. And I was like, wow. And I remember when I wrote my thesis, I got such rave reviews about how well written my thesis and my articles were. Now, if my mother, wonderfully, was on here right now, she would tell you that she greatly influenced me, and I'm going to have to give her a shout out. I kind of self-taught myself how to read a little bit, because my mother used to read a book called Tiger is a Fraidy Cat. And she read that book to me over and over till I memorized the words. And when my mother used to read to me, she used to read in voices. And her voice would go up and down, and she was very animated. And so that created a love for telling stories. So I used to be an excellent reader because of that. And people love to hear me tell stories because I could take you on this journey. I naturally change my voice. I become whoever the character is. If my mother did that, that's how she taught me how to read. And so I would do the same thing whether I'm telling a story audibly or whether I'm writing a story. And so I never considered myself to be much of a writer. So I started sharing people's stories, and I hired a coach. And one of the things she told me when I was trying to figure out, what do I do with this? She said, Chanel, you're a master storyteller. I said, I am. She said, the way that you tell stories for people, you can show people how to do that. And I realized that because of the way God had showed me, there was a formula that I had that I could teach others on how to tell their story. And we learned that in pitching. That's the reason why I was able to fundraise. We've raised over $500,000. And why I do well in sales was because I would put everything in story form. And now it just oozes out of me, Jason. I don't have to think about it. Exactly. So it's just like, because it's so natural. And so I needed to give you guys the premise, because you never know how God's going to use something. So I never thought about being a publisher at all. It fell on my lap. I was trying to write my second book, and I needed accountability. I invited people to come write with me. And then before you know it, I'm the influencer helping people finish books. And I'm like, okay, well, these people are listening to me. They value, and the way that I would communicate with people, the stories that I would tell them would inspire them and motivate them to finish. And the engineer in me put it in a process, put it in a template, something that is scalable and repeatable. So we started rinsing and repeating these challenges, and we attached the business model, thanks to my husband, Chris. When he recognized, he said, hold up, this is a business. And I was like, well, he said, yeah, you can do these challenges every quarter. I said, really? And then we ended up adding publishing to that piece, because what I was doing was birthing out so many authors, and quite a few people were like, who's going to help me publish? And I had self-published my first book, and it was so painful doing it myself and finding all the resources. And so I experienced the pain point, and so I was able to take my chemical engineering brain, my process-oriented brain, my project management skills, and the pain points that I had when trying to do it myself, and we have Beyond the Book Media. Now, one thing that makes us very special as a publisher is the fact that we answer one critical problem that people have when it comes to publishing a book. Most people want to write books, but they don't know where to get started, or they need accountability. And so I added into our business model as a main staple product, free writing challenges and 21-day author boot camp. And I curated them to make sure that all of the roadblocks that I had. I remember trying to upload my book to CreateSpace at the time, and it wouldn't. I kept having all of these problems, and I realized that was spiritual warfare. So I remember praying and crying out to God and canceling the enemy and demanding that my book be released, right? I remember the struggle it was to find a great editing and book covers and getting someone that was going to be reliable. I remember trying to upload it to CreateSpace and having all these errors. And because I have a little bit of a design background, I could fix it myself. I had Photoshop. I said, let me go ahead and try to fix it. I remember all of those things. And then so I wanted to create something that would help as much as possible alleviate those pain points and produce quality work. And so that's what we've been able to do with Beyond the Book Media.
That is just such a powerful story, Chanel. I've heard it in pieces, but you telling me it from that perspective, such a powerful testimony, and just seeing the growth and the success of the company and being able to impact and help so many. As I firmly believe this, along with you, Chanel, I believe pretty much everybody has a book in them. Everybody has a story. And I heard somebody say it this way, that our stories are assets, not liabilities, so we should share them. And so I'm very thankful for you and Beyond the Book Media and what you're doing out there for authors. So, entrepreneurs, business owners, if you work in corporate, if there's a story out there that needs to be told, you're going to want to stay pretty attached to Chanel. You're going to want to follow this lady, I'm telling you. Now, Chanel, Beyond the Book Media is still, I don't think people understand, we're still scratching the surface because Chanel, you being a great storyteller and being a lifelong learner, if there was a third thing I had to add that you do well, and that's bringing people together. And so, Chanel, we have Beyond the Book Media, and then there's this whole new other community that you've started. Now, I know what it is, and you know what it is, but Chanel, you've got to tell the people, what is KBN? What is the Kingdom Business Network? Because that, you've come full circle. You've had all the skills that God has used throughout the years. You had your startup in the beauty and the beauty space. You had the radio show and the media. You had project management. You're doing the fashion show. We have Beyond the Book Media and how God graced you there. And then all of a sudden, the current history, Chanel, KBN. Tell us what God is doing with the Kingdom Business Network, what it is, where it's going, and just the very essence of what that is.
Okay, so Kingdom Business Network is a community of faith-based believers who are about doing our Father's business, right? Whether that is operating in your actual business, in your purpose, in your ministry, in your assignment. And initially, God had showed me Kingdom Business Network probably about a year before we actually launched it. And I knew it was going to be a huge network. I already saw it, but I didn't know where it was supposed to live or even really what it was. I had already been doing ministry for business owners. I did that for about a year, so independently from Beyond the Book Media. I would host like a lot of virtual prayer calls monthly. So I was already kind of establishing my footprint. I love how God works with me. He always gives me a little training ground. Then he says, all right, jump in the water. So because of all of my experience and because I didn't count myself out and because I'm willing, Jason, the pandemic hit and out comes Clubhouse. And when I joined Clubhouse, it had been out for like about 7 months, I think, at this time. And the day I got on, I heard the Lord say, this is where Kingdom Business Network will live. I had no idea what a clubhouse really was, I'm going to be honest. I just was like, all right, well, I'm going to apply for a club. I'm going to be obedient. So then I get in there and I realize, I said, oh, wait, this is like a radio station. So I started thinking about what I learned when I worked at radio and how we would produce shows. And I had my experience in Beyond the Book Media. Beyond the Book Media started with a volunteer culture, Jason. Before I had any paid staff, I had volunteers that would help me serve and produce content and serve the people. And so I kind of took that same model. Actually, I took quite a few people that helped me with Beyond the Book Media and brought them over to KBN because I trusted them. And I said, hey, we're growing this network. I'm on Clubhouse. I got a club. Are you interested in doing some rooms? And then once it really started picking up steam, I said, hold up now. Supernatural. I said, if I see what I'm seeing, this could be huge. And I need to stay top of mind. So I can't physically be the only person. But I need every time someone comes on Clubhouse that they see Kingdom Business Network. I looked at it like every time block is a slot, like in radio. So I started trying to figure out, okay, how can I make sure that we are top of mind? So I started recruiting people. And then I knew I needed help. One of the very first rooms we had, regular rooms, was Coffee and Conversations. And that room was every day. And I saw how it exploded growth. So I was like, God told me that I needed to have my own everyday room. A friend of mine started that room. So I started Prophetic Planning for Your Day because God told me to. And that ended up exploding beyond my wildest dreams. Now, right before Prophetic Planning for Your Day, I was praying and asking God, I wanted to have more men in our network as leaders. That was very important to me so that we could be well-rounded. And Chandler Bailey comes into the room and he raises his hand, just like everybody else, Jason. And we bring him up to the stage to share his prompt. Mm-hmm. And whatever came out of his mouth, I was like, oh, I've got to connect with him. And so again, sliding in the DM, I said, hey, you want to be a moderator? This is before I knew anything about anything. And he had to ponder on it. We'll let him tell his version of the story. But ultimately, he said yes. And as we began to work together in Prophetic Planning for Your Day, I got a word from God that he was supposed to help me build Kingdom Business Network. So if you guys see the trend, like I'm telling you, like I'm so God-led because I can't even come up. Y'all, I'm not this smart. I'm smart, but I'm not this smart, okay? I don't have this much strategy, this much wisdom. This is all supernatural. So God, so he accepted the position and we started honoring him as a co-visionary and now co-founder because we're making this real, we made this official, right? Because at first I thought it was going to be under Beyond the Book Media. That's how we started. And God was like, no, this is a separate entity from Beyond the Book Media. And I needed to make it separate because now I'm bringing on a partner. So now we have Kingdom Business Network, and it is right now on Clubhouse, but we are working diligently in strategy to expand off Clubhouse because it's bigger than Clubhouse. So we have about 14 shows in Clubhouse culture. We call them rooms, and which each one lasts about an hour to 2 hours, in which we share content centered around our core values. And those values are entertainment, education, empowerment, and the events. And so we've handpicked moderators or basically show hosts that produce their own content inside of the network. So they get the network's backing and stamp of approval, I'll say, which is more important now since they've kind of changed the algorithm, Jason. So it's been a great. We got in at the right time, is what I'm trying to say. Mm-hmm. So I've been able to grow the network to over 60,000 members and followers, and recruit people who produce quality shows. And so I'm going to tell you something. My church, All Nations Worship Assembly in Atlanta. We have a global leader that's All Nations Worship Assembly in Chicago, and I watch the global pastor, Apostle Matthew Stevenson, from afar, and I was able to pick up, that lifelong learner thing, his strategy for rapid reproduction of churches and planting. And one thing the Lord told me, he said, you may not plant churches, but you plant business, you plant movements. So I took his strategy, or the thing that I learned from afar, and I said, how do you stay top of mind? You rapidly reproduce and you put people in position. And so one of the things that I'm not afraid to do is to put people in position, because ultimately it's about growing the kingdom of God. And so we've been able to expand and grow our network and stay top of mind, because I give our room moderators, our show coordinators, the freedom and the flexibility to share what God has given them. And so that is Kingdom Business Network.
I absolutely love it, Chanel. Folks, you definitely need to. If you don't know anything about the Clubhouse app, if you log on, the only thing you need to be looking at on there is KBN, the Kingdom Business Network. Find Chanel as quickly as you can, and we'll talk about that, Chanel, as we kind of come to a close. And we're definitely going to have you back, Chanel, because there is much more to be unpacked. But in our last few minutes, what are some upcoming events or things you have going on? And then what is the best way for people to connect with you on what you have going on right now?
Absolutely. So we have right now the Kingdom Business Network Conference, which is what we're promoting. We opened up tickets yesterday, and we have already sold out of our early bird tickets, which is bananas to me.
It's crazy.
Isn't that crazy? And so that's going to be in Atlanta, September 15th through 18th, 2021. So I'm looking forward to that coming together and that gathering of people. So I'm excited about that. If you are interested in learning more about our KBN conference, or even connecting with me, I would love if you would follow me on Instagram. You can shoot me a DM. I would say that's probably the easiest way. And I'm on Instagram at Chanel E. Martin. That is CHANELE Martin, MARTIN. So Chanel E. Martin. You can follow me on Instagram. You can send me a message. And that's probably the fastest, most efficient way to get in contact with me.
Well, Chanel, I want to thank you for all the powerful wisdom you've shared, your transparency and vulnerability from where God has brought you. You're an inspiration to so many, and I thank you for our friendship and partnership that we have. I enjoy working with you in every capacity. So, Chanel, thank you so much for being with us. And like I said, we're going to come back for round 2 at some point. I know you're a busy lady and keep things moving, so I'll give you plenty of lead time to come back. But thank you so much for tonight, and we'll definitely bring you back.
Thank you so much, Jason, and I am just so excited for what God's going to do with you. I caught an image of just the brand and where God's taking you. So all I got is just 2 words: get ready.
Amen. I received that. Get ready. Well, folks, I want to thank you so much for tuning in. Chanel Martin is one of the best people that I know, and these are the types of conversations that we're going to have here on the Jericho Force podcast. So as we close out, I want to leave you with this, folks. Remember, don't conform to the world's way of doing business. Transform by doing business God's way. If you want more information about the Jericho Force podcast, go to jerichoforce.com/podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you next time. God bless.
Welcome to the Jericho Force podcast, where we learn how to integrate faith into the work that we do. Don't conform to the world's way of doing business. Transform by doing business God's way. Here's our host, my husband, author, speaker, teacher, encourager, and stewardship coach, Jason Davis.